Good day, everyone. Welcome to our live webinar, Business Continuity Key Learnings from the Pandemic. Today, we are joined by industry leaders as we talk about how the COVID-19 pandemic has reshaped businesses in the last few months and how business leaders were forced to rethink their strategies and approaches to overcome challenges. We have a full house of impressive speakers today, and I'm excited to introduce them to you all. Joining us today for the first time ever is Daniel Adkins, Group CEO of Transnational Academic Group. The first 2 decades of his career, he worked in the IT industry, providing management consulting services for companies in the Fortune 100. In his time, he specialized in the areas of business process re-engineering, risk management, disaster recovery, and business continuity. On the roster, we also have Sudeep Sachin, the Chief Financial Officer of Tech One Global Group and Anadoc. He has experience in various roles at Transnational Academic Group in Middle East and Africa, including being their Chief Financial Officer, overseeing financial management of university operations in Dubai and Ghana. And of course, we have Lars Jepsen, CEO and co-founder of Tech One Global Group and Anadoc, and Wasantha Barakune, COO and co-founder of Tech One Global Group and Anadoc. Hey, gentlemen, how's it going today?
Thank you. Good
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Thank you
Are,
so
are
much.
you all,
Thank
are you all
you.
safe? We good?
Yes.
Safe and good. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really great to hear. Now, I'm sure we have an insightful hour ahead of us, so let's jump right to it. Okay, so COVID-19 has really turned the world on its head. It really took us all by surprise. So, Lars, when the lockdown was announced, as business leaders, as a business leader, what were your initial thoughts and plan of action?
Well, I think, my initial thought was that this is not going to last for a very long time, and it might not have a big effect on us. But of course, that became very evident, after just a few weeks into the pandemic. I was traveling in the US just early March, and before I left in Philippines, where I live, there was already a lot of things happening. You had your temperature checked when you entered into buildings, malls, and so on. A lot of people were wearing masks, and quite a lot of awareness already. But then it was a stark contrast when I went to the US. From airport to hotel to convention center, there was no evidence of anything unusual going on. But after 1 week after I returned home, we got information on Thursday, the 12th of March, I believe it was, that kids would not go to school on the 13th because the school wanted to prepare for homeschooling in case there would be a lockdown. So that Friday, the 13th, was actually the last day our kids, they went to school. So Sunday, there was a severe lockdown announced in Philippines, and until today, the kids are still schooled at home. So it has been a world upside down, and there was a lot of things going through our mind in the first couple of weeks, and how are the employees going to be affected by this? Are they going to have any health issues? What about their families? What about our business? What about our across the board? It was a very confusing situation, but I think we fairly easily, not easily, but fairly soon found some clarity and direction in that. Together with our group management and leadership team, we went and did a lot of initiatives. But the initial question was, how is this going to end? And I, at least at that time, was not thinking it's going to last beyond a few more months. I was under the same impression like many other people that once summer kicks in, it'll all go away and so on. But of course, it didn't happen like that.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Lars. And Wasantha, what was your take on this? How did it affect you?
Thank you. In fact, I was along with Lars. We were both traveling outside when you're back on. I was back on 11th actually. Um, I had not expected this will go. This is going to be something like this, but it was when I got a call from our HR team and say, okay, probably we need to really take this one more serious, and we need to have a look at what we are going to do. Um, but it was like it took less than 3-4 days to become very evident that this is not going to be like any other flu season or any other event. But then we had quite a bit of questions in front of us: how long this is going to go on, and what are we going to do? Is it can we operate? What would other people do? And there were a lot of questions in front of us, which we have, of course, resolved very, very quickly because we had the tools what is required. But it was not something expected at all in for me as well.
Right, right. It was really unexpected, right? I mean, everyone from citizens to organization leaders and even the government was really taken aback by what happened. Now, Dan, as I would say a risk management expert, you would really know about the challenges that businesses faced. What do you think were the biggest challenges organizations faced during the pandemic and the lockdown?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that they faced initially was that they weren't prepared for it. Most companies had never even considered the possibility of a global pandemic and a government mandated lockdown that meant that they could not use their primary facilities. At Transnational Academic Group, because of our experience, we actually already had this concept of not being able to use our primary facility written into our risk management plan. And 2 weeks before the start of the pandemic, or the pandemic lockdown rather, we already had one of our classes up on a pilot session doing fully interactive online classes. So by the time the government made the announcement that there was going to be a lockdown, we had 2 weeks of experience, had worked out all of the technical glitches, had trained all of our team, and as soon as the government made the announcement, we were able to go live with the fully interactive online classes. We saw a lot of our competition who had not contemplated this, had not prepared, and they ended up missing classes right after the lockdown started. And most of them went to just recording the lecturer's voice over the PowerPoint slides for students to download, which was a much degraded experience for the students. I think the thing that businesses have faced throughout is thinking that things are going to go back to the way they were and trying to hold on to their prior model of doing business, where the companies that have prepared well already had alternates in mind, or the companies who have been flexible and adaptable have been able to not only survive, but some of them have thrived by repurposing. Fine Hygienic Holdings here in Dubai went into making face masks. Culligan Water went into making hand sanitizer. And these businesses have actually posted record profits during the time. So it all comes down to preparation and then flexibility with execution.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that insight, Dan. Sachin, I would really love to get your 2 cents on the matter.
A biggest challenge during this pandemic for all of us was kind of uncertainty what we had in our minds.
whether it was going to go for a very longer period, whether it's going to be within few days or a month or something like that, or are we able to survive this pandemic or not able to survive this? I think these kind of questions were there in everyone's mind. As Dan mentioned, whoever is ready up to a certain level to adapt quickly, or also maybe whoever was ready to innovate themselves into a kind of a different kind of organization to keep their business rolling. I think those are the organizations who are able to survive this lockdown. Again, to add on to it, I think the biggest challenges, if you ask, I think it's always about how to keep the business rolling, particularly in terms of your financials, the cash flows, as well as your working capital requirements. If we are able to meet that, I think those were the biggest challenges every organization has it, particularly during this pandemic situation.
That's actually very interesting that you brought up the financials and how it was affected. Now, it goes without saying that the pandemic really affected the economy. But for SMBs, what were the biggest financial blows, and how could businesses recover from them? And I would like to redirect this question to Sachin, since you have extensive experience as a chief financial officer.
Again, as I mentioned, it's uncertainty will bring a lot of kind of impact onto this situations. And when you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, it is very difficult to plan, particularly for the SMBs. It's not only depending upon their own operations, it's also depending upon how their clientele will be ready to react to this situation. I think that would have a substantial impact on the both sides. So considering that the biggest impact, what I foresee is like how you can survive the situation by kind of making sure your business is continuing, how you can get your working capital needs done, particularly through maybe cutting down your expenses up to a certain level, maybe reorganizing on your humanitarian or human resources angle. Also, relooking at your infrastructure, how to utilize it in a better way. I think that's the only way the SMBs would have survived this time period. Whoever were able to re-engineer their systems, I think they were able to survive this pandemic in a much better way.
Thank you very much for that, Sachin. Lars, I would really love to get your take on this as well.
Yeah, I think in this sense, if you talk specifically about SMBs, the SMBs like us have an opportunity in any situation because of the smaller size of the organization. The agility is also there. So the first couple of weeks, what we did was that we looked at all parts of our business. How can we convert that into something that is relevant, in the market right now? So, for example, our legacy is around document management, content management, and we have very strong product, and we have many clients in the market. And the first couple of weeks, we are already hearing from those clients that thanks God that they have invested in a document management solution, because that gave them the ability to work remotely. But of course, all the new clients that we were expecting, they were in the opposite dilemma. They have not yet bought, or they have not yet implemented, and now they cannot get started because going to their office to scan documents was not an opportunity. So we looked at our product development. What can we do to change our business model to become relevant? So we put a lot of effort to designing a signing application inside our product. So now people who would get InnoDoc, even if they don't have a backlog of documents to put in InnoDoc to be able to work remotely, the documents that they need to process and sign, they can now use InnoDoc for that application. So that was one of the initiatives. We have a photo retouching business, no weddings, no events, and even real estate photography kind of stopped. But suddenly everybody needed a background for Zoom and Teams. So we innovated there and launched a work from home like a boss website where clients can go and choose between different type of backgrounds and get their logo on. That also took off as well. And like that, we looked at some different business opportunities that we could drive at that time. We are the regional distributor for Fujitsu, for example. Fujitsu scanners, traditionally we sell them as a business to business platform, but with small businesses needing to get documents online and scanned, we created an online store through Daraz and Lazada, where we could sell those scanners online. So if you are a restaurant, you need to be a food delivery service. If you are a grocery, you need to have an e-commerce website. So all of those initiatives need to be done there. If you just sit back and say, "Oh, I'm panicking," then you would not go anywhere. So while you're having all the constraints that and the cutting the cost and reducing your expenses, like what Sajjan is explaining, at the same time, you also need to invest. Because if you don't invest and drive your business in a different direction, there's a good chance you are going to become, irrelevant, and end of the pandemic, you would not be there anymore. So I want to add to that our partnership also with Microsoft. During the first 6 months of the pandemic, so basically from April and until almost now, Microsoft has been heavily pushing organizations to go online with Microsoft Teams and platforms like that. And they have been engaging partners like us and paying us to deploy those solutions. So that was also part of our strategy to become very much aligned with that and deploy as many clients on this platform as possible during that time. So Microsoft would give the licenses for free for a certain period, and we would get paid by Microsoft to deploy those licenses. So that kind of relationship had also helped to soften up the effect of the COVID during that time.
Thank you very much for that insightful comment, Lars. Now, just I think to sum up, what I got from that, very important nowadays to first be innovative, be flexible, and invest in the right solutions. So, we are months in this pandemic, and people are saying that we might not go back to the old kind of normal. That part of life is gone. Now, in the new normal, I'm curious to know which parts of organization's business continuity plan worked and which didn't. And I would really like to get Dan's insight on this.
So I think that the businesses that are still around, clearly their business continuity plan, or at least their ability to adapt quickly, has proven to work. But as far as long-term sustainability and being able to survive the new normal, businesses are going to have to look at what's likely to happen. And I think the best way to do that is to look back historically to either the 1918 flu pandemic or to the 1929 Great Depression. When we look at what people did coming out of that, there was a significant decrease in spending for consumption. People wanted to save money to protect themselves against the next pandemic or the next crisis because they never wanted to be in that situation again. Businesses took the same approach, and because there was less spending, obviously less demand for products, which meant less jobs being available. So I think businesses really need to look at how they can support the new normal and the fact that people are probably not going to be buying as many luxury goods or as many vacation trips or as grand of trips, things of that nature, and make sure that their business can survive in an economy that probably won't return to the pre-COVID size for at least a decade.
All right, thank you very much for that, Dan. Now, Wasant, I would also love to get your feedback on this. I think you're on mute, Wasantha. Sorry.
I'm sorry. So what I will do is I'll take your previous question, a part of the previous question also, and then the current one. So the previous you asked what was the biggest blow for SMBs in the pandemic, and in fact. The biggest blow for them were, they were not like SMBs are not significantly cash rich, or they don't have large amount of cash surplus sitting in their organizations. And the second thing is a lot of SMBs did not spend money on to transform themselves into to operate or to expect to transform. But having said that, I will tell you some real stories that we have seen. So the fourth day of the lockdown, there was no vegetable. There was no, it is being becoming difficult for people to get the essential food items, to be because we are not being able to go out. I'm just telling my personal experience, but. The people who were selling vegetables, they became suddenly digital entrepreneurs. They were having using WhatsApp groups to take orders, delivering gas to vegetables to rest of the stuff what is required. Suddenly they pulled out from their bench, where their shop, and they moved onto a place where they could operate. So I think in the new normal, in the what is going to work, using you said the BCP, which part of the BCP will work for the organizations who are being able to unplug their employees and put them in wherever convenient and to deliver. That is, those are the organizations which will work and will be successful. Now, to do that, uh, the biggest challenge between, we did a bit of research, we found that the biggest challenge for organizations to unplug their employees from their current physical location of their work and to work from anywhere is not having access to their the paper based repositories of business knowledge and information. So I think organizations who have invested on that area has made significant or quick breakthrough into that. So I will, I have some parallels that I can talk about. In 2004, when Sri Lanka hit tsunami, this was the first thing is the denial. So the morning when my mom called me and said, the sea coming towards land, I laughed at her, and I just switched on the TV, and then I started seeing some sort of video report suddenly coming in by every minute things are changing. We started realizing it is not it's not going to be something small. It is going to be very significant. It took many thousands of lives from away from us. So in that situation, exactly the same thing happened. People, we lost communication. We lost people, lost places to live, and in the same time they lost a lot of business critical information what they were having without backups. So I think we don't know what is what the pandemic looks like at this time. At least it is not damaging our buildings or our communication lines. So this time it is only taking lives and spreading at a rapid pace. So the BCP has to be ready for, I think, more than in one direction. So I would say probably you're going to ask this question later. But in my opinion, what works, again I'm repeating, is the organizations who do have that flexibility to deploy their people in a way that it will not physically impact them to have a challenge in terms of delivering their services or solutions.
All right. Thank you very much for that really wonderful answer from you, Wasanta. Now, talking about talking about business continuity planning and the likes, right? Being ready. Now, I would like to hear more, I guess, real cases of how our organizations did it. So my question is, how did you, as business leaders, conduct your business continuity planning in your respective organizations? And what were the biggest factors you had to take into consideration? Lars, you want to take this one?
Yeah. So I think, ourselves as a company, of course, we have been promoters of digital transformation for many years. In fact, if you go through our YouTube channel after this, you'll find many webinars we have done on that specific topic. So, of course, we have been taking our own medicine in that sense that we have digitally transformed our own organization in the last few years. And when the pandemic started, we already had a work from home policy. We already have our setup done in the way that people could work from home from the very next day. So if we close the office in maybe the third week of March, from next day everybody was working at home, and it was not so difficult. Of course, there would be somebody who didn't have a headset and somebody who didn't have a webcam and things like this. But in the next few days, that kind of got sorted out. So we were ready. What's interesting was that I used to sign documents in our app at wherever I am, and then I go and sign documents physically in the office every week, because that's what is required. We are not alone. It doesn't matter. We are transformed if everybody else is not transformed. But the flexibility of the environment around in this situation, certainly, we didn't have to do that anymore. We could simply sign online, submit the documents online, and most of the cases, things could be executed. And I now go to the bank once a month, and they give me a stack of documents, and I sit and sign for maybe 15-20 minutes. So that kind of process was there. All of our meetings are anyway already online in Microsoft Teams. Our documents are in our InnoDoc, and our processes don't really require anybody to go to the office. In fact, the only reason somebody goes to the office today, that they really have to go to the office, is because they have to receive some documents from somewhere or send some documents to somewhere, to another organization that is not digitally transformed yet. So once that is kind of fixed in the next couple of years, or maybe next couple of months, then we will be able to operate much more in the way that we actually wanted to. People don't have to spend time commuting to the office. They can spend more time with their family and have a different kind of work-life balance. So I think that's all good. But the biggest challenge for us was not us, but others. I think that was my experience. Maybe I think unlike us, I think Dan and his company had a big plan. So it will be interesting to hear from him what they have done, because I think that's a real model that we should really expose how they did that.
Right. And that's very good, because I was actually just about to ask Dan as well, because we heard that, transnational was very prepared for this to happen. Now, we would like to know more about that. Can we get your insight on that, Dan?
Yes, so we do business continuity planning as part of our regular risk planning and risk management. So we had already planned out contingencies for how we would deal with different scenarios. Of course, the old saying is true that no plan survives first contact with implementation. So we did have to modify as we went along. We didn't know 2 years ago or 3 years ago, when we were talking about the risk of not being able to use our campus, that the reason would be this particular virus, or a virus with the particular characteristics. As soon as we saw that COVID-19 was becoming a pandemic, we started educating our team on what the virus was like, how it was spread, what the risk factors were, how to protect themselves and our students. We implemented cleaning procedures and processes to minimize the risk on campus, and started reducing the amount of staff that was coming to campus. And then when the lockdown started, since we had already worked out our processes, starting our classes was quite easy, and we were able to conduct all of our business through webinars and virtual meetings, and have done so without any difficulty now for some 7 months or 8 months. And as we know from epidemiologists, it is very likely that this pandemic will continue at least through summer or early fall of next year, by the time the vaccine has been fully rolled out and given to everyone. So we know that we're going to have to continue to conduct business in a fully online fashion. One of the biggest impacts for us was the fact that the GTEx trade show, which is the largest educational trade show that occurs in the Middle East, and normally a very large source of leads for prospective students for us, was canceled because clearly you can't have a trade show with 30,000 people attending over 3 days during a pandemic. That required us to go back and relook at our marketing and figure out how could we reach out to prospective students in a different way that would still allow us to get the prospective students' contact information and at the same time do something that was a real value add for them. So we, instead of GTEx, hosted an essay writing competition. We hosted a hackathon. We did a summer camp where students got 1 week of short courses that will benefit them in their education and then in their later life and career, along with a 1 week internship where they were able to get practical working experience. And then we are just now coming to the conclusion of the Business Cup Challenge, which is our annual business case study event and one of our largest public events. We had 1,100 students sign up and have participated in a fully online case study competition. So being able to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic really comes down to being creative about how can we work in this new normal, and being willing to take the seed of ideas that have worked previously and figure out how to make them work in this new context, and also to come up with completely new ideas that would have never been thought of before because there was a historical dependence on a certain way of doing business. I really believe that the businesses that are going to survive and thrive are not only the ones who, as Sachin had said, figure out how to reduce their expenses, but more, as Lars had said, are the ones who have figured out how they can continue and even expand their revenue base despite the pandemic.
All right. Thank you very much for that, Dan. Now, Lars, do you have anything else to add here?
Yeah, I just to comment on that. I think there's a saying that in every disaster there's an opportunity. So of course, if you look at the stock markets across the world, you have seen that of course some profits have been taken out of this situation. I'm not talking about the companies making vaccine, but the company that provides solutions for enabling this new type of work environment and learning environment. Companies like Microsoft, Zoom, and others, providing this virtual meetings and so on, have been able to change the way we live and work together during this time. I wanted to add a little bit to the other part of the story, which is that in Asia, I wouldn't say that a pandemic, of course, is like Vasanta said, something that lasts a long time. but disasters is not unknown to us. In fact, we are going through one right now in the Philippines, where a bigger area has been flooded by typhoon, and 2 weeks ago it was a different area. If we look at earlier this year, before the pandemic, we had a volcano erupting close to Metro Manila that also disrupted businesses and education. And in fact, those hotels and restaurants that are closer to the volcano just came out of that side, and then they went into the pandemic side. So there you can talk about some real challenges for organizations. But I guess many organizations in Asia have had more resilience probably than in Europe and Europe, US, or in Western Europe, and also maybe even Australia, because we are more used to disasters happening on a regular basis. So we kind of have emergency planning almost like built into our DNA, because there's nothing that is normal. There will not be at least a couple of months without something. We had terror attacks in Sri Lanka last year that also disrupted businesses for a long time, and hotels and travels and things like this. So when we say the new normal, it's probably not so much really new normal for us. The new normal is that it's extended, and therefore it's has a bigger impact. I think the bigger impact right now we can see is on education. That is the biggest impact, because even food business and restaurants, hotels eventually will open up more. And you have seen in Europe, they have opened up, and now they have had to close them down again, many places. But education, where kids are not going to school, has a huge impact, not only on the education as a business, which is what Dan is doing, but on the kids that are not going to school, on the kids who are sitting at home for 6 months, 9 months without having much social interaction and a real learning experience. It's not a problem maybe for a college student or university student, but think about the kindergarten, the younger age of the K to 12, who are sitting at home, and also the responsibility of the parent who might be working at home and taking care of the kids at the same time. So I maybe you should talk about that, Ara, because I know you're also in that situation, right? So I think that's the more difficult part of this. The businesses, we have to be strong, and we have to be innovative, creative, and flexible, and trust. I think what I heard about, but if people are working at home, how can we trust that they're really working? Okay, but first of all, I don't think you have much choice. And secondly, you need to focus more on the outcome. It's not a matter of, is this person online from 8 to 5, and can I check that they are really online all that time and they don't sneak out and do something? I think it's a paradigm shift. You have to change the way that people work, and it has to be based on what we agree that will be done, get done within the time it's agreed on. That's the most important thing. Whether people are doing it at 9 o'clock at night because they could only go out for groceries at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not the bigger issue actually. So those transformations are part of the whole work ethics, and how we work together is a part of the transformation that happens as well. So back to you, Ara.
Thank you very much for that, Lars. And, it is right. I mean, it is a complete paradigm shift. It's not just how, the work setup is, or, how we think. It's really everything. And as you said, so, yes, being a mom who's working from home, it is kind of tough, because unlike before, when you go into the office, it's just that you focus on work for 8-9 hours, and then you go home. This time around, you have to you have to move a lot of things around. It is actually tougher. And it goes without saying that, we are in a pretty bad situation with majority of us. And no one really wishes for a similar crisis to, hit us again. But of course, realistically speaking, and you also mentioned this earlier, Lars, disasters are just there. We can encounter them any time. Now, what should organizations do differently in case another disaster or pandemic hopefully not, but what should we do when another disaster strikes? Sachin, I think I would really love to get your insight on this.
Okay. If we have to just think about this pandemic, this is not the first pandemic or not the first disaster which has happened, or no, not one the last one to be happening. So what you have to do, like, let your organization be prepared. When I'm saying like be prepared, it doesn't mean like you have to like get ready for any kind of situation, like have planned for any kind of unforeseen scenarios. It's not like you can be 100% ready for anything, but you should have plans for your unforeseen scenarios. So don't wait till something disastrous happen. So get your document digitized, get your workflows done online as much as possible. Facilitate work from home structures, maybe have policies around that, get the infrastructures available for that. And more importantly, I think have a flexible workforce. When I'm saying the flexible workforce means it's not only about having a people who are just can do their work, also who can adapt to do different things. It should be like a multitasking, working across the teams, and able to take a different roles and responsibilities when the situation arises. I think you have to plan it from the time you hire your resources. It's not only like when the disaster happens, then you will just change the policy and you try to accommodate the people and other things. It should be from the beginning, you should plan for it. Also, act fast. Don't wait something to happen very bad. I think you need to maybe take action as quick as possible. Don't wait like something your organization will have no tomorrow. For example, there is no cash flows available, there is no business available, and suddenly you have to shut down. That don't wait for that kind of scenario. You have to act fast. Not only like cutting your expenses or all other things are important. Apart from that, look at the opportunities during this disaster situation as well. You can't just say, okay, this is disaster has striked us now, so we will not do anything, we will just wait and cut the cost and wait for something to happen, and suddenly next day we are back into the business. It will not happen like that. So what you need to do is look for the opportunities, how to turn around your business and keep rolling during this period. I think that's the most important thing. That's where I'll end.
All right, thank you very much for that, Sachin. That is a very good point. Now, Wasantha, I would also love to get your insight on this. You're on mute again, Wasantha. So sorry about that.
Sorry. So as usual, I will bridge between the previous question and this one. In the BCP planning, if you a BCP planning, I think should focus, in my opinion, based on three fundamental pillars. The first one is you need to take care of your stakeholders. So the stakeholders will start from your internal employees, your customers, and also your shareholders and owners, and also the legislature or wherever you are operating. I think we need to, under any circumstance, we need to keep all of them happy. So how to keep them happy when such a big disaster strikes is by understanding and improving. You may need to take tough decisions, of course, then, but still understanding, and don't take just a single side. Just don't try to optimize only one side. Optimize everything together, taking into consideration by improving efficiency, while thinking about you being able to keep this business running. Because if you keep everyone happy, and if the business goes down in 3 to 4 months, that means that is not going to work. So your business continuity planning uh, should should have certain elements that is also making sure that this business will last for a longer period of time, for you to serve all your stakeholders. So having said that, what should organizations do differently? Now, you might have heard 2-3 times this was mentioned. One is Lars has been saying, we are digitally transformed, but unfortunately we have to go to office to receive some documents from someone or send some documents. So I mean, it's not always the case everywhere, but in many places, part of the organizations are digitally transformed. The other citizens are not being digitally transformed. So that, it is just like, you in this pandemic we wear face mask. So is it enough that one is wearing face mask? No, we expect that everyone else to wear face mask as well. So then the transmission get controlled. In the same way, your boundaries of your organizations has to be digitally enabled, or we call it digitize your organization boundaries. So when you digitize your organization boundaries, what happens, the other organizations will be able to communicate with you digitally, removing the requirement of that we being have to be physically somewhere there. So it doesn't matter whether it is a disaster of a typhoon, or if you it is whether it is a whether it is a virus, so where we need to be isolated, as long as our communication lines are available, and if you can move, as I repeatedly say, unplug your employees and move them back to a place where they can operate to deliver services. I think that is what we should be addressing. So having said that, to give a rough some examples of what we did, we had around 200 of our employees who have been working in our operations. We're being able to move some of their workloads immediately home, especially data entry operations and knowledge workers and software development. And also within this period, personally in our experience, we brought around 200 schools online to teach. So that was, I think, more than anything else, that was a wonderful experience for us. That's a contribution that we made for the digital transformation of the society. Beyond money, our people, they worked around 16-17 hours voluntarily to get there. So that kind of we can say uh, uh, teamwork, I think people transformation also has to happen, because it doesn't happen just like that. You need the leadership to drive that. So I'm quite happy to be part of this organization, seeing that we have been driving not only our own survival, but also how we could do and what we could do to help all the others to come along when to support this support to face this pandemic. So final words: if you wanted to face another disaster or pandemics like this, digitize your organization. Not only digitize your organization, digitize your boundaries, and be responsible, because then organizations can communicate to each other easily. So that's my uh, 10 cents on this.
Thank you, Asantha. I think Ara is having a little bit of difficulty with her connection, so I'll be taking over at the moment. Just to add into the question as well, maybe Lars can add his thoughts onto the last question.
Yeah, so actually, this was a perfect example of digital transformation, right? Ara lost her connection, and now her colleague in Sri Lanka is taking over seamlessly and with no issues. I hope Ara is back. She's alive and she's safe. And I kind of even forgot the question in the middle of that. So can you just repeat it, because I got confused with my own comments? Reshika, if you can just repeat your question, please.
Yes, Lars. So the last question for you will be, what should organizations do differently in case of another disaster strikes?
Okay. First of all, I think we have all learned in this time, and some people like Dan, who has been training it or educating on this for many years, would have told everybody, please get ready, because disasters will happen. and for the same reason you have a car insurance and all these things. It's not going to be the last time, and it might be the last time that we have the COVID-19. It will end, but there's something else that will happen. We live in a society today where we live so closely packed together in urban areas that these kind of things will spread rapidly. And we are probably lucky that it didn't happen earlier, because there was Ebola, and we had many other H1N1, I think it's called, that was here also in Southeast Asia in the around 10 years ago, 9 years ago. So there has been things like this where epidemics could have become pandemic. So I think, realize that this is going to be a part of how we are going to live in the future. You can call it the new normal or whatever you want to call it, but it's going to be like this. And it was already like this before. And we just didn't have this longer period of any specific disaster. Like Vasanta said, tsunami hit certain people. It completely wiped out the infrastructure in those areas, but it was not contagious. I mean, it was not people 200 kilometers away did not get affected by that in any direct way, except trying to help out. Like we have a huge flooding in the Philippines, but as you can see here in my office, I don't have any water. But if I walk outside and I meet somebody who has a virus, I can get that virus. So that is the real thing. That's why we keep ourselves at home. And I think getting ready for the future is about being digital and being agile, being always ready to look for what is it that the market needs. We heard about people starting to make face masks, people starting to deliver fruits and vegetables online, photo retouchers creating Teams and Zoom backgrounds, and also creating signing inside our app. Very important is to be agile and to have that foundation that more and more people will be working from home. And if they are working from home, you are less prone to any specific disasters, because disasters will not happen everywhere at the same time. We have seen the cloud, for example, being a big solution during this time, because if you cannot get to the office and because your office is underwater, your documents are still safe in the cloud. Don't expect that nothing will happen, because it will happen. And we normally talk about the leaking AC and the termites and fire and things like this, but it could also be that somebody opens the floodgates at the wrong time, and the pandemic spreads out a virus. So disasters will happen, and if you want to be safeguarding your business and your life, you need to prepare yourself. And technology is a big part of that scenario, because we are connected society. Everything happens online. So if you cannot get online with your business, then you have a problem.
All right. Thank you very much for such a wonderful insight to all the speakers, and of course your personal experiences. Thank you for sharing them all. Now we are opening the line to some questions from the audience. All right. And
I can see a question from Stella.
Yeah, we actually have a question here from Stella. Now, the first one is, this question is, do you see a difference of speed to cloud adoption that might delay the business continuity plan in different countries across Asia Pacific? Who would like to take this? Who would like to answer?
Yeah, I can take a go. While Santa can think me. I think definitely the organizations and the countries who had adapted to cloud earlier have been able to survive or improve or extend their business in this time. So I think I have not seen if there's any numbers on that, but I'm sure that IDC or Microsoft or AWS, somebody is going to come up with some statistics saying that organizations who had adopted cloud have fared better during the pandemic than the organizations who did not adapt cloud. So I think there is definitely a connection between business continuity and cloud adaptation. And of course, now you're saying the countries. Of course, countries means what? It means governments, or it means individual organizations in those countries. So I think in Southeast Asia, we still have challenges with what we call the data residency. In Europe, for example, you will see the data residency is not only in data center Europe, but in individual countries that has their own requirement. And that, of course, will still happen in many places. So if there is a data residency issue and compliance issue, it is important that, of course, those local market get served by local cloud providers that can offer these solutions, maybe connected with the global cloud providers where the data is in sync. But definitely there is a connection between cloud adaptation and the survival rate, I would say, in terms of business continuity and planning.
All right, thank you very much for that, Lars. Anybody want to add anything on that? Dan, do you want to add on to that? Or Vasanta?
I think last talked about that a lot, but I think the cloud adaptation is being challenged by data sovereignty, as last mentioned. But nevertheless, cloud adoption is not something that would not stop because of that challenge. So there are two type of, I think, responsibilities are there. The people who provide the cloud environment should start looking at these options of moving the cloud closer to your home, and when that happens, people will adapt. So it is not a technology issue anymore. I would say that because we could see that the technology what is required for this one is already in place. So the delay is nothing to do with technology, but it is related to how sensitive it is in terms of governments, or in terms of the organization's approach to where to keep their information. So I think that's my opinion on that. But definitely there will be a impact on this to the acceptance.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that insightful thoughts with us, Vasanta. Unfortunately, ours seems to be away again due to her connectivity issues. So I think that's pretty much it. We have for today. We are running out of time. Just before we wrap up, we'd like to thank all the speakers for joining with us today and sharing these wonderful insights with all our listeners, and sharing your experience, first-hand experience with us. Before we end this conversation, we'd like to also mention about our offer. We are giving you one-to-one free consultation on setting up your business continuity blueprint so that we can help you to be prepared for the next disaster or next hazard which might be on our way. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, speakers, for sharing these thoughts and giving your special time with us and being with us today. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.